Hello everyone and welcome to Castle's Corner. I am Coach Castle, and today I'll be reading a summary from Blinklist of the book Switch. It's by Chip Heath and Dan Heath, How to Change Things When Change is Hard. What is it about? Switch examines why it is often difficult for people to switch their behavior and how, by understanding the mind, it is possible to find shortcuts that make change easier. Who is this for? Anyone who wants to change parts of their own behavior, anyone who wants to implement a change in a group or organization, and anyone who wants to understand why changing their behavior is so difficult to do. Now, implementing change is like riding an elephant. Choose the direction, give your elephant some peanuts, and stick to an easy path. Changing our behavior is not always easy, as anyone who is resolved to quit smoking, eat healthier, or start running in the mornings will know. So what is it that can make change so difficult? An excellent analogy for examining behavioral change is that of an elephant and its rider, trying to follow a certain path. The elephant, being a powerful, stubborn creature, represents the emotional side of people, looking for a quick payoff rather than the long-term benefits. The rider, in turn, represents the rational side that knows what should be done and can tug at the elephant's reins to exert some small degree of control over it. Finally, the path represents the situation in which the change is to take place. Consider a situation where you want to get up at 5:45 in the morning to go jogging. Your inner rider has rationally analyzed the situation and thinks this is good for you. But what happens when the alarm actually goes off in the morning? If you're like most people, your inner elephant will demand just a little more sleep, totally overpowering your rider, and you'll end up skipping the jog. But what about the situational factors that help or hinder your noble quest? A comfy bed and bad weather outside won't help get the elephant moving, that's for sure. On the other hand, the smell of freshly brewed coffee just might. All three components influence whether change will be successful, whether progress along the path is made. From changing your own diet to influencing others' behavior, your success will depend on your ability to direct the rider, motivate the elephant, and shape the path. Find the bright spots, learn from them, and spread them around. Your inner rider is a terrific thinker and planner. Unfortunately, he is also prone to spinning his wheels, overanalyzing every aspect of potential change without actually doing anything. Worse still, his analysis is totally problem-focused, obsessing over the difficulties ahead. But endless analysis of the obstacles in your way gets you nowhere. You must give the rider a clear direction to go in so he can put his planning and rational thinking to good use. Instead of looking at the problems, find and focus on the so-called bright spots, the specific situations or areas where change has already succeeded. Then, figure out how change was achieved and leverage those lessons to make the change more widespread. This approach was first employed by Jerry Sternum in 1990 when the government of Vietnam invited him to help fight children's malnutrition. Rather than tackling the myriad and near unsolvable cases of malnutrition, poverty, poor sanitation, etc., Sternum decided to look for bright spots. He found that in a small local village with near universal malnutrition, some children were in fact well nourished. Their families had already solved the problem, in fact. By observing these families, Sternum discovered that there were small but important differences in the way that these children were being fed. For example, while the children received no more food than in their other families, the mothers fed them smaller portions more often. Sternum managed to spread these behaviors to the other families, who accepted them more readily because they came from their own community and not from outsiders. The impact of these small changes was amazing. 6 months later, 65% of the children of the village were better nourished. Therefore, the bright spots had spread considerably. The rider hates making decisions, so clearly script the critical moves needed for a change. When faced with a change situation, the rider can easily succumb to something called decision paralysis. Say you're trying to implement the vague behavioral change to eat healthier. The rider will try to analyze all the possible alternatives of how to do this. Eating more vegetables, eating less pasta, eating less salt, frying with a different oil, etc. Any one of those changes would already help, but the rider ends up doing a lot of analysis and changes nothing. This is a very human tendency. Studies have shown that, somewhat paradoxically, the more choices we have, the less we are able to make a decision. Too many alternatives just confuse us. From the outside, this may look like resistance to change, but it's actually lack of clarity on what to do next. The solution is to give the rider clear directions to follow. Ambiguity is the enemy. So, you need to provide clear behavioral goals and instructions. Think about the situations that are most critical for the change and script the critical moves for those situations. For example, to eat healthier, you probably need to script the critical moves for shopping. What you buy and keep in your house is what you eat. When health researchers wanted to persuade West Virginians to eat a healthier diet, they did not offer vague advice like eat healthier. Instead, they provided crystal clear instructions. Next time you're buying milk, buy 1% milk instead of whole milk. That's it. The advice was so easy for consumers to implement, the market share of low-fat milk doubled, drastically lowering consumers' fat consumption. So, when scripted correctly, even small changes can bring big benefits over time. Use a destination postcard that appeals to both the rider and the elephant. When faced with change, the rider will often obsess about which direction to move in, wasting energy by overanalyzing every option. However, you can avoid this analysis paralysis by giving the rider a direction that he can navigate towards. For example, when first grade teacher Crystal Jones wanted to motivate her students, she told them by the end of the year they would all be honorary third graders, reading, writing, doing math, and so forth at a third grade level. This was a powerful image because it spoke to the students' inner riders, giving them a clear goal to strive for. But it also engaged their inner elephant by promising a desirable goal, the cool third grader status. This is called a destination postcard, a vivid and attractive picture of the near future. To be most effective, it should appeal to both the rider and the elephant. Above all else, ensure that you script the critical moves in line with the destination postcard so they work in unison to further the desired change. But what about when someone isn't really committed to change? Say you've decided to eat healthier. You can try to adhere to a new diet, but sooner or later you'll start rationalizing, well, I did eat a salad last week, so surely I can eat those 6 hot dogs now. To stop rationalizing, one solution might be to make the goals black and white, meaning they have no wiggle room. Instead of eat healthier, you could say, I'll never eat another hot dog again. This strict approach is less inspiring, but often produces better results. To get the elephant moving in the right direction, evoke strong emotions. While your inner rider may technically hold the reins of your inner elephant, in a battle of wills, the rider will only be able to command the powerful beast for so long before his strength runs out and the elephant veers off in the wrong direction. This is why successful changes usually demand motivating the elephant as well. Logical analysis and rational arguments that appeal to the rider are of no help here. Instead, to get the elephant moving in the right direction, a powerful emotion must be triggered. When John Steger wanted to convince the leaders of the manufacturing company he worked for that their purchase function was hugely inefficient, he knew he needed to get their attention fast. Charts and analysis would not be enough. So, Steger targeted his presentation to the inner elephants of the management team. He obtained 1 pair of each type of glove used in the company's various factories, amassing 424 different types of gloves in total. He then piled them onto the conference table and invited the leadership of the firm to see this huge heap, prompting an emotional reaction. Why are we buying so many different kinds of gloves? This is crazy. Immediately, the whole management team agreed that Steger should revamp the purchasing process. The emotion evoked to get the elephant moving can be either positive, like desire, or negative, like fear. In general, a negative emotion can highlight a sense of urgency, narrowing people's focus to fix an obvious problem quickly, as the sense of shock and outrage did in Steger's case. But when problems are less clearly defined and the solutions aren't as obvious, positive emotions are more productive, as they tend to broaden people's outlooks, helping them find new solutions. To get the elephant to climb a mountain, lead it up a small hill first. Change often seems massive and daunting. For example, a person who is deeply in debt can feel like they'll never be able to pay it off. To the elephant, a massive change looks like a demoralizing mountain that is expected to climb, and hence it remains stubbornly still. So, how do you get this elephant moving? You need to shrink the change. Show the elephant it just needs to climb a small hill first. One solution is to demonstrate to the elephant that progress has already been made. Consider this study. When people were told they needed 10 stamps on their car wash loyalty cards to get a free car wash, only 19% completed their card. When another group was told they just needed 12 stamps, but, here's the catch, the card already had 2 stamps. 34% completed the card. That's almost double the amount. Despite the identical effort needed, the second group was more motivated to complete the card because they felt they already had started the journey. Hence, to motivate people, emphasize progress already made. But the most important way to shrink the change is to split it into smaller milestones, or inch pebbles. Make it easy to attain small wins. This is the approach personal finance guru Dave Ramsey uses to help people out of debt. Contrary to the advice given by many accountants, Ramsey tells his customers to pay off the smallest debts first because it is far more motivating to eliminate small debts entirely than to reduce a larger debt by a small amount. To change people's behavior, give them an easy path to follow. Sometimes, change can succeed even with a confused rider and reluctant elephant. The reason lies with the path that they are following. Situational or environmental factors affect people's behavior. Hence, shaping the path to be a gentle, pleasant, downhill stroll can be a great help in making changes. People tend to underestimate the role of situational factors, especially when trying to explain the behavior of others. This is known as fundamental attribution error. We think the behavior of others derives from the way they are rather than the situation they are in. But, actually, situational factors play a huge part in the way we behave. Research indicates that they can be even more powerful in influencing our behavior than innate factors. Consider a study where college students were rated by their friends in a list of innate charitableness and labeled accordingly as saints, the top half, or jerks, the bottom half. Next, the students were mailed letters asking them to contribute food to charity. To examine the effect of situational factors, half of them, chosen at random, received a very basic letter asking them to bring food to a well-known spot on campus, while the other half received more detailed instructions specifically requesting a can of beans and providing a map of the exact donation location. The basic letter yielded mediocre results. Only 8% of the saints donated and not one of the jerks. But, in response to the detailed letter, a stunning 25% of the jerks donated. During the Vietnam War, the U.S. government was concerned about rampant drug use among its troops. Some 20% of the soldiers developed a serious addiction in Vietnam, and there were concerns about the consequences when they brought their new habits back home. Astonishingly, however, the government found that 1 year after returning, only 1% of the veterans were still addicted. Just as the environment in Vietnam had made many of them addicts, their familiar environment and loved ones back home made them kick the habit. This example highlights that one of the ways that environment affects our behavior is by enforcing or deterring habits, and habits are crucial for change. Our behavioral autopilot. We engage in habits, both positive and negative, without thinking, which means they demand very little effort from the inner rider. If you can build habits that advance the desired change, you're basically getting a free ride. But building new habits is not easy, so it is vital to shape the path, the environment, to help you adopt them. One way to achieve this is to set environmental action triggers for your habit. When A happens, you do B. In effect, this passes control of your behavior to the environment. For example, you could decide that whenever you drop off your children at school, the trigger, you will immediately go to the gym, the action.
One of the things I tell young men, well, and young women as well, but the young men really need to hear this more, I think, is that you should be a monster. You know, because everyone says, well, you should be harmless, virtuous. You shouldn't do anyone any harm. You should sheath your competitive instinct. You shouldn't try to win. You know, you don't want to be too aggressive. You don't want to be too assertive. You want to take a back seat and all of that. It's like, no.
There's people in here far superior than me. But there's no one in here that's going to work harder than me. We get up at 5:30 in the morning, it's pissing rain outside. Our competition's sleeping. I love that.
I will not be outworked, period.
Where I excel is ridiculous, sickening work ethic. While the other guy's sleeping, I'm working. While the other guy's eating, I'm working.
Talent you have naturally. Skill is only developed by hours and hours and hours of beating on your craft.